What was the last thing you saw before it hit and the video ended?
Він мене чув, і він намагався не рухатись, щоб я його не побачив.
What's the feeling when you hit your target?
Відчуття виконаного обов'язку.
This Ukrainian drone pilot is proud of his job. From his command post, located in a classified and highly protected area, the young man guides dozens of silent ships every day that search for Russian troops like relentless bloodhounds.
Is flying free, searching for something to destroy.
Once it detects its target, there's no way to escape from these modern kamikazes. The drone crashes into the victim, tearing it to pieces. Not only that, but it also captures on camera the enemy's final moments, just as the unmanned craft makes contact with its body.
Ти дійсно почуваєш себе птахом. Кінців зривається. Це ж просто неймовірно.
In this new installment of military force, we are going to accompany these 21st century pilots in their brutal hunt from a distance. We warn you that this story does not end well for the Russian soldiers. What you are seeing on screen is a Ukrainian team of drone pilots arriving at their base of operations. The work begins early, before the sun has finished positioning itself in the sky. Darkness is always a desirable cover for these men. Beyond the technology necessary to handle the miniature ships, the essential provision that this group requires are the explosives that transform simple flying machines into destructive machines that detonate upon contact with a target. It is not just any weapon. These are devices that allow for stealthy and personalized tracking, almost like trained missiles that obey their master. The Russians can try to hide behind a tree or in the depths of a trench, but in the sky of Ukraine there are kamikaze lookouts ready to swoop in. The material is shocking, but this is how war is lived in Europe. Unmanned aircraft have gained a reputation as the spearhead for Kyiv's troops, and the results speak for themselves. Deaths caused by drones have increased exponentially, and their production is becoming increasingly cheaper compared to other, more ostentatious resources, such as missiles or artillery pieces. Among the units that became a reference in this new facet of war, the Achilles Battalion of the 92nd Brigade of Ukraine stands out. Its soldiers are among the most experienced pilots of these Hunter aircraft and have professionalized the role to a level never seen before. If there is one thing that this bloody war will leave as a legacy, it is the incredible advance in terms of remote attacks and the unmanned devices that are used in these missions. But not everything is innovation. There is also a large dose of survival and practicality. These pilots had to learn to repair these machines using scarce resources and spare parts from destroyed machinery. The result is a hybrid force that combines the best of technology with human ingenuity. The important thing is not that the device looks elegant or futuristic, but that it is able to enter small nooks and crannies to kill the enemy. This is the point of view of a drone that was directed towards the hiding place of a Russian soldier. This plastic and metal bird entered through a window to annihilate its target. At a safe distance, a second device recorded the moment when the Kremlin's soldier transformed into a cloud of dust. With surgical precision, the hunter entered the abandoned house, finishing off the potential threat in seconds. Another point for the relentless Achilles Battalion. A curious fact is that one of the operational centers of this brigade is an old Russian ammunition warehouse that was captured.
The Achilles Battalion of Ukraine's 92nd Brigade owns it now. So sensitive its location, they won't even tell us where we are on the map.
Since June 2023, propaganda videos presented by both the Ukrainian and Russian defense ministries have had a great impact on expert opinion. These are first-person footage captured by the cameras of drones that armies use to annihilate the enemy, images that create a new and brutal way of understanding and visualizing war. The narrative changes when you can see the exact moment when a machine operated several kilometers away hits a soldier's body and blows it into 1,000 pieces. The videos usually focus on the ships that are used as missiles, the so-called kamikaze drones, which explode upon contact with their target. This can consist of vehicles, radars, bunkers, and, of course, troops that are at the mercy of these silent hunters. But these machines, as automated as they may seem, have a human element that, for the moment, is necessary for their operation. As we mentioned, drone pilots play an increasingly important role in the war. They are highly trained operators to manipulate a hybrid between a miniature aircraft and a missile. Within the Ukrainian force, these positions are coveted for a clear reason. It is a job that is done in relative safety, but which still allows them to make a significant contribution in the fight against the Kremlin, riddling its soldiers at an increasingly accelerated pace. Next, we will accompany one of these mysterious operators as he flies over Andriivka, one of the many towns that were devastated by fighting with Russian forces.
Зараз ми підлітаємо безпосередньо на лінію розмежування. Прямо з FPV-шної камери можете побачити, наскільки тут від землі немає живого місця.
Suddenly, with the help of his team, this young pilot comes across a group of Russians advancing through this ruined and apocalyptic territory. As we previously indicated, when a drone detects you, you can run, but you will never be able to escape.
О, диви, бігають, світяться. Як красиво.
Boom, right on target. The camera screen was covered in black and white stripes, similar to those that used to appear on old tube televisions. The connection was lost, but that was not a bad sign, quite the opposite. It means that the drone successfully exploded in the back of a Russian armored vehicle, blowing the impacted area to pieces. The attack was probably not enough to completely destroy the vehicle, but it was enough to compromise its functionality or even seriously injure its occupants. It is a job well done by the operator, since with a plastic piece worth a few $1,000s, he managed to damage an expensive and tactically important vehicle. Let us pause for a moment on the young man behind the glasses and controls. As you may know, when the Russian invasion began, in February 2022, many people left their daily occupations to join the local resistance force. Professionals, farmers, police officers, and all kinds of workers were transformed overnight into soldiers. They did not have the technical or tactical training, but they did have the desire to fight. This was the case of this young man, only 20 years old, a biology student who earned the nickname Darwin in reference to the famous scientist who postulated the theory of the evolution of species. In some way, he is also part of an evolutionary process, although in the field of war. From surveillance devices to drones that release grenades and, finally, to flying kamikazes. Let's listen to how the young man explains the importance of these systems in the context of the invasion of his country.
Ціль, яка рухається, вважається практично тією, в яку не можна влучити. У нас, якщо ціль рухається, і ми знаходимося над нею, це ніякої ролі не грає.
One of the major complications of this conflict is that the fighting took place both in rural and remote areas, and in large cities full of houses and buildings. The latter is a challenge, as the structures are ideal hiding places for ambushes, snipers, and, today, drone operators. In the case of Ukraine, trying to repel the invader with bombs, missiles, or artillery would also mean destroying its own country. That is why explosive devices are presented as a much more precise option with less collateral damage for Kiev's troops.
Достатньо часто ворогом використовуються багатоповерхові будівлі в якості позиції для роботи. Але із дронами камікадзе, які є у нас, ці укриття перестають бути укриттями.
The problem is that unlike artillery munitions, Ukrainian remote-controlled drones cannot be mass-produced. Instead, they are the result of a fairly artisanal process carried out in government-controlled workshops, although there are also others carried out clandestinely by committed civilians. Each piece is built from available explosives that are then adapted to attack drones. In many cases, shells are taken from old Soviet RPGs and loaded onto plastic parts created using 3D printers. Basic tools, glue, and tape are used. The process may seem primitive, but the result is extremely lethal. As we mentioned earlier, Ukrainian pilots have combined cutting-edge technology with great creativity when it comes to assembling new destructive pieces. What you're seeing on screen is a device called Avada Kedavra. Yes, like Harry Potter's spell. But this drone built from an anti-tank missile charge has nothing magical about it. It is a crucial element to be able to attack the thousands of armored vehicles that the Kremlin has, and which have meant a brutal advantage during its invasion. Let's see this toy in action.
Дуже сильно броньовані, дійсно. Якщо використовувати звичайні боєприпаси, то вибухають вони доволі рідко. З такими штуками вибухають частіше. В порівнянні з артилерією і FPV. Звісно, FPV буде сильно вигравати, це високоточна зброя.
Darwin insists that drones have a great advantage over artillery, and although his assessment may be controversial, since Russia has won several territories using this weapon, the truth is that Ukraine is in a very difficult context. It does not have the industrial capabilities of the Kremlin, and its production is cut short by the advance of the enemy. That is why drones are considered the best option for the troops in Kiev. These small unmanned aircraft have provided excellent results and have caused truly painful losses to the enemy. The most interesting thing is that these capabilities must be attributed both to the technology and to the pilots. People like Darwin, who carry out an impressive job. Seeing his workstation is impressive. The glasses can reach far beyond the limits of his bunker, allowing his mind to traverse the Ukrainian fields as if he were a falcon in full hunt. The controls generally resemble those used in video games. On the one hand, they are cheaper, but there is also a practical reason: the motor memory of many of the young operators. Because before the war, they were frequent users of these game consoles. The hellish context of the Russian invasion has allowed them to use the skills gained through years of gaming in a task that is not at all fun, but is very necessary for their country.
Плюс. Відпрацювали.
But beyond the distance and detachment that comes from fighting through checkpoints, Ukrainian soldiers are well aware that this is not a game. They understand that there are lives at stake, both their own and others, and that they must act with this enormous responsibility in mind. Let's listen to the reflections of Darwin, the star pilot of the Achilles Battalion of the 92nd Brigade of Ukraine.
Does it feel like a video game?
Ні, це не відчувається як відеогра, відчувається як змагання за власне життя і власну територію.
How many targets have you been able to hit?
За весь час скільки?
Do you keep score?
Ні.
Despite the interviewer's insistence, Darwin says that he does not keep track of the number of attacks he has carried out since the beginning of the conflict. Although it may seem strange, since we are used to snipers keeping a detailed record of the number of lives they have eliminated, you must bear in mind that the role of the drone pilot is different. His job is routine, tense, and he must use all his concentration in each of the flights, since the units that are put into service are difficult to build, and a wasted drone is a great material loss for Ukraine. He cannot be thinking about past or future cases, he must be focused on the present, hunting down that soldier who appears on the screen to eliminate him. For the Russians, drones have become a real nightmare. They are silent machines that appear when you least expect it, and thanks to their size and speed, they can chase you to the most inhospitable corners. They do not tire or have compassion, and worse still, every death they cause is recorded on camera. This is not a minor detail. Unmanned aircraft are both a weapon to annihilate enemies and a constant producer of propaganda content. In this way, fear is sown in the Kremlin troops and their confidence is destroyed. Darwin's experiences, although particular, can be applied to the rest of the Ukrainian drone pilots. Today, these solitary operators who work long hours inside secret bunkers are one of the most important pillars in the defense of their country. Beyond the result of this bloody conflict, the truth is that thanks to their spectacular performance, the future of war will not be the same. Load, aim, shoot, and escape. It all happens in an instant for the Ukrainian snipers who have become the nightmare of the Kremlin troops. While Vladimir Putin's elements have achieved incredible victories during their invasion, the truth is that the snipers of the local resistance have been a constant torture for them. From the ruins of a building or behind the undergrowth in a cold forest, these silent hunters have riddled hundreds of Russians. In this new installment of military force, we propose you to join these secret teams to experience firsthand how a sniper works and what it feels like to blow an opponent's brains out. Without further ado, put on your bulletproof vest and let's begin with this installment. During the war in Ukraine, we have seen the development of new technologies and the retirement of tactics that have already become obsolete. However, to the surprise of many analysts, there is one role that remains important, that of snipers. These patient soldiers who open fire on the enemy from a hidden position, causing the maximum number of casualties possible without exposing themselves. This is especially useful when fighting takes place in urban areas that have a wide range of places to hide. Whether it be homes, buildings, shops, or any type of structure, there the Ukrainian snipers have found an ideal space to annihilate the enemy. What you are seeing on screen is a video recorded by a Kiev operator who waits silently among the rubble of a ruined building. We can see the platform used to take the lives of the Russian enemies, a rifle that appears to be an AR-15 type. There are two striking elements. On the one hand, the machine gun placed on one side, supported by a tripod. Evidently, this attack was carried out by a team, although only the sniper's record remains. On the other hand, the small slit through which the sniper must shoot shows that precision is everything. After firing a few shots, which resounded with a sound as spectacular as it was threatening, the sniper decided to change position. In this way, we can see firsthand how destroyed the structure where this Ukrainian soldier is hiding is. The space is completely destroyed. Parts of the wall and ceiling are about to fall off. The stairs are full of dust and marks of combat. The building is a ghost space that seems to be uninhabited, but that does not mean that we should let our guard down. Faced with potential danger, the Kyiv sniper stopped in the doorway and used his own arm to steady the aim of his rifle. A primitive and old tactic, but no less precise for that. From outside, distant rumblings and soft sounds of combat can be heard. The soldier goes on alert and prepares to take down any nearby threat. It is in these moments of complete solitude that composure, ability, and training come into play. The sniper knows that the only thing that separates him from death is his rifle and his ability to use it correctly, with deadly precision. Each step must be taken carefully, knowing that crossing open terrain or showing himself through a window could put him in the sight of an enemy sniper. In this case, the recorded material only allows us to see the defensive strategies of the sniper, who remained hidden in that pile of rubble, which was once a building. the Ukrainian sniper program was not always equally powerful and effective. It is a fortress that was built over time and that was shaped by the need to implement this type of offensive in highly important territories. Although at the beginning of the conflict the sniper teams had no experience, they made up for those shortcomings with confidence and a lot of courage. In this way, they became a crucial piece in the counteroffensives of Volodymyr Zelensky's government. Initially, the primary mission of the snipers was reconnaissance, that is, placing themselves in privileged places to be able to see the enemy's activity and report it to their colleagues. Over time, this changed to adjust to Ukraine's operational needs. Now, the main value is to shoot down high-priority targets. Each cartridge is expensive, and opening fire also implies revealing the position, which is why the snipers only pull the trigger when the prey justifies it. The order is to kill commanders, sergeants, and high-ranking officers who are part of the mission planning. These are losses that are always painful for the rival, since they reduce their tactical capacity. The deaths of ordinary soldiers do not carry the same weight. Russia has hundreds of thousands of troops. Killing a handful of them would not have any negative effect. Next, we will see another sniper activity, but this time recorded from the point of view of a fellow soldier who watches as the sniper annihilates Russians in the city of Optine. The man who is waiting still, observing through the telescopic sight, is not a Ukrainian soldier, but a Chechen volunteer member of the Sheikh Mansour battalion. Later, we will tell you what this unit is about, but first, let's see it in action. Two shots, two deaths. That is the balance that every sniper seeks. As we anticipated, the sniper was part of the Sheikh Mansour battalion, one of the many Chechen armed militias made up of volunteers who joined the war between Russia and Ukraine as allies of Kyiv. The unit was named in honor of a Chechen military commander and Islamic leader who fought against the expansion of the Russian Empire in the Caucasus region during the 18th century. This gives an indication that hatred and tensions between these peoples are nothing new, rather the opposite. They are ancestral rivalries that find their way to the present through modern interests that hide old grudges. The Sheikh Mansour battalion has been active since the first stage, which began in 2014, and which later led to the invasion of the Kremlin troops into Ukrainian territory. This means that they have been fighting in Europe for a decade now, which is why their snipers have great tactical ability and are completely familiar with the contexts and weapons used. Although most are volunteers who joined spontaneously, that does not mean that they do not have concrete experience. In fact, almost all of them are veterans of the Chechen wars of the 1990s, so they know the Russian troops and their strategies very well. Because of this, they have been an invaluable support for Kyiv. Perhaps the most notable characteristic of this battalion is that they refuse to be part of the International Legion, nor to receive salaries or support from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. They operate on their own without following rules or receiving orders. Their support for Zelensky is motivated entirely by their hatred of the Russians, following the famous Arabic saying that dictates, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Let us return to the operations of those two soldiers who were hidden in the depths of Opytna in the Donetsk Oblast.
Снимаемся. Минус 2. РПГ, водос. Уходит.
As we anticipated, shooting is not a decision to be taken lightly. The sound and sight of your rifle will reveal your position. You must be sure that pulling the trigger is worth it. In this case, the shooters were discovered and had to flee from their hiding place immediately so as not to be annihilated by the Russian troops. The life of a sniper is like that, from calm and absolute silence to the madness of fleeing before hundreds of rivals arrive to annihilate you. Usually, snipers active in Ukraine record all their activities, both to keep an accurate count of their casualties and to add material to the propaganda campaign of the Zelensky government. That is why experts claim that snipers have a dual role in the war in Ukraine. On the one hand, they are a lethal tool to eliminate high-importance targets, such as officers and commanders. On the other hand, their presence has a devastating psychological effect, striking fear into the hearts of Russian soldiers. Knowing that there are thousands of assassins hiding out, waiting for the right moment to gun them down, is a breeding ground for paranoia. Among all the Ukrainian cities that have been the scene of brutal fighting, there is one that stands out above the rest due to the level of violence it experienced. We are talking about Bakhmut, a land of nightmares where Kyiv snipers had a very hard task. Now we find ourselves in the point of view of a sniper located in an abandoned building. The man was there trying to protect his companions in the middle of the campaign to retake Bakhmut, which triggered hand-to-hand combat and a brutal number of deaths on both sides. The operator covered his rifle with a rag, perhaps to camouflage the platform, although when using such a large weapon, it is difficult for it to go unnoticed by the eyes of the rival. Suddenly, a loud bang served as the first warning of what was to come.
Там у меня есть карта. Из-за группы деревьев оттуда здесь красный огонек вылетел.
In the background, a thunderous noise and the sound of automatic gunfire could be heard. While such symphonies are common in the midst of a war, the proximity was worrying and alerted the entire team that the Russians were approaching. Still, they would never have expected what happened next.
Ой, блядь. Спалились, сука. Пидорас.
A shot hit just a few centimeters from the Ukrainian operator. Someone had seen him, but he didn't have the precision to take him down. When a rifle cartridge passes so close to your body, the response depends entirely on your training and your courage. That experience can paralyze you or activate survival mode to immediately flee the scene. The latter is what the sniper did, who moved away from any window or door from which he could be seen by the stealthy rival. Again, the camera carried by this soldier allows us to enter one of the many homes completely destroyed by the war. It is a vision as dark as it is depressing. These spaces used to be homes and workspaces. Now, they are skeletons of concrete and wood on the verge of collapse. The operator crossed the remains trying to find a new suitable place to place his equipment and continue with his work as a sniper. Let's listen to the soundtrack of this scene. With explosions and gunfire in the background, the sniper continued to advance in that destroyed house. There is a point at which men must stop being afraid of those noises. You cannot hesitate. You must continue marching even if the explosions and the cartridges come closer. The only intelligent response is to evaluate the options and act accordingly, but that hellish sound cannot freeze a soldier's survival instincts. Finally, the operator found an ideal position in a ruined room. The main window had an interesting advantage to hide there and eliminate some Russians, but first, it was necessary to prepare the place. Once that primitive camouflage composed of a simple household curtain was ready, the sniper got into position to wait for the right moment to pull the trigger. Although the shot is not too prodigious and the curtain covers a large part of the visual field, it is still striking to hear the shots fired by the Ukrainian soldier. Remember that this mission was carried out in Bakhmut, a city devastated by the worst fighting of the entire conflict. A mix of the brutality of the trenches of the First World War, the massiveness of the Second World War, and the modern technology of the latest conflicts. Unlike other similar files, it is notable how this sniper began shooting with pauses, aiming carefully and then opening fire more frequently, almost as if it were an assault rifle. The last video that we will analyze in this installment has a notable curiosity that separates it from the rest of the files. Generally, the records of this war take place in contexts of destruction, with spaces devastated by the fury of the conflict. While this is shocking, It is even more shocking to see soldiers with huge rifles shooting from the living room of a well-maintained house, a space in which, until a few months ago, a family lived. The contrast is brutal. A flowered armchair, a wooden desk, and on top of it, a Soviet KSVK rifle with a 12.7mm caliber, a beast capable of penetrating metal, concrete, and all kinds of solid materials. Usually, these types of weapons are not used to eliminate other people, since the energy released is too great and the result is a shattered body, an image that is too grotesque. The main role of these platforms is to destroy radars, telephones, vehicle engines, and other medium or low armor units. Even so, in a war, there are no unbreakable rules. On more than one occasion, the power of the KSVK has been used to take down human targets. The role of the sniper remains one of the strangest and most complex. He must combine patience and calm, with cold blood to pull the trigger at the precise moment so that the shot ends a life. As you can see, the efforts of the Ukrainian snipers have been fundamental to the local resistance, as they not only managed to contain and eliminate the enemy's advance, but also instilled terror in the hearts of their rivals. Beyond their important victories, the Kremlin troops live with the worry of being in the sights of a Ukrainian sniper, knowing that the next step they take may be the last of their lives. In this way, we come to the end of this shocking episode that took us to the depths of the war in Ukraine. If you like this type of content, we invite you to subscribe and activate notifications on our channel. Without further ado, we say goodbye until the next installment of Military Force. Thank you for joining us.